I think one of the keys to being successful as a father and continuing to evolve is to surround yourself with the right people. We're heading into that as a 13-year-old where I'm like, oh boy, here we go. That's something I struggle with. Hey man, that work will be there tomorrow. Put the phone down, go and be a dad, lock in to being a dad.
Hello, I am Tony Cooper, host of the Dad Manual podcast, and I'm here today with one of my favorite dads. Dustin, please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, my name's Dustin Shephard. I'm a great dad, and I think I got some wisdom to share. Like, great dad, but I thought you were going to tell me how to be a great dad on the podcast.
Yeah, right. Listen to the other ones, brother.
Wait a second. What did I get talked into?
Oh my God. That's right. Well, we do. I think that is why we're doing this. And I've been talking to people who I've known forever, like you, known forever. And I'm hearing stuff that they've worked through or mistakes they've made or breakthrough they've had as being a dad. And I was like, oof, wow, that's good. I wish I had known that sort of thing. So look, you and I have kids who are in their 20s and you have kids who are not in their 20s. I was thinking about this morning because Olivia is going through something right now and we're having really deep conversations. I was like, man, I've been doing this since they were kids. And she is an adult, but we just keep being dads. As long as we understand and keep altering our approach and understanding our role and what the kids need at different times. So why don't we start with you just laying out who your kids are and different dynamics there.
Awesome. Well, I am a girl dad. I have 3 beautiful daughters. Grace, my oldest, who is 23 years old. She's in her master's out at Idaho State, and she's studying to be a speech therapist. And so she was my early kiddo. I had her when I was 24.
Oh.
And then I've got Kaya, my middle, who just turned 13, and we call her Kaya Bear. And she's so creative and just a joy and musically talented and athletic and all those things. And then I got my little Spitfire, my 8-year-old Leilani. My wife calls her my mini me because she's pretty focused, pretty locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, being a girl dad is, I think there were people when I was younger who said, yeah, you're going to have all girls. It was like, true story. Hey, play it out, So,
yeah.
And I wouldn't change a damn thing. So, So I'm a girl dad, 3 beautiful daughters, covering just a few spectrums there too in age.
Absolutely. And also add in Kai and Leilani have a different mother than Grace.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. Second rodeo on my end. I was a young dad, ended up with Gracie full custody when she was probably about 10, but it took a little while. Gracie, I call her my PIC, my partner in crime, because we really grew up together, Yeah. She was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. My ex was in the Air Force up there. I was up there. Soon after she was born, my ex was out of the military. We moved back to Sacramento. But it was a wild time, man. I spent 2 winters up in Alaska working at a bank, dipping my toe into the mortgage industry that I'm still in today. I remember finding out I was going to be a dad up in Alaska and literally no family, no friends, nothing around. It's you and your significant other and
bunch of seals.
But and it's just, I remember going, well, it's not about you anymore, Dustin, and you better get your shit together.
Yeah. Plan, not plan. When you found out that Grace was coming, walk me through what was that like?
I think planned like a 24-year-old plans things. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Let's get a dog, I always wanted to be a dad. I always looked forward to being a dad someday. But I think what's so cool about this idea, this podcast too, Tony, is there is no playbook. Right. There's no playbook for being a dad. And I don't care if you're well off in your career and, you're in your early 30s and you waited and you did all the right things. I did the other path. I was like, I'm going to follow this girl to Alaska. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no career. I'm going to just figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
I was 22-year-old when I moved up there. And so just figured it out. It's life-changing as a young man when you realize there's a lot of young men, they don't have a lot of responsibilities. At 23, 24 years old, they're hoping they make it to work on time. Right. I was aware enough that it was this is not about you anymore. Success is the only option. You have to go work and provide and be a good dad.
Where did that idea come from, do you think?
You know what? I had a different childhood. My parents split when I was going into my freshman year of high school, the summer going into my freshman year high school. My dad is from the North Shore of Oahu. He moved back to Hawaii when I was 15 years old. And I ended up moving out soon after. Like I was 15 years old. I moved in with my best friends. And I want to be clear, like I have a good relationship with both my parents, my mom and my dad, but it wasn't always the case. And I was kind of a hard-headed shit and kind of angry at the world at 14, 15.
I imagine you were. Yeah.
So, and all that is just context for, I had this chip on my shoulder that I was going to do it better when I was younger. Like I was determined to do it better than my parents and be a better parent and be a better dad. And I didn't even know what that looked like, but I knew that that's where I was going. I was going to do it better.
Right.
And I think as I got older, as I got a little more evolved with personal growth and some of those things, like that chip, that anger or whatever it wasn't serving me the way I needed it to. The drive or the desire to be a better version of myself or the examples that I'd had was good, but it wasn't always coming from like the healthiest place. I had a chip on my shoulder when I was young. I was like, I'm going to be better than you, and I'm going to make sure everybody knows it.
There was resentment, not just like an aspiration for better, but like a fighting against something was present.
Totally. It was very like, Rage Against the Machine. I'm going to show all these people that doubted me, that wronged me. I'm going to show them. And that's okay, I think, to a certain extent in life. But if that's all you're carrying, that's going to affect how you show up as a father too.
Yeah. The thing I know about you, Dustin, is you are pretty committed to your own personal growth and development. So any version of yourself that you ever are, you always look to get better, look to grow, look to learn more, look to behave better, more aligned with what your intentions are, without necessarily making who you were wrong. And so the way you were saying that, I realized that hopefully that's true for every dad, is that they want to be a better version of dad than their dad was, without saying that there was anything wrong with their dad. But there's always room for growth. There's always the next level. And so just being able to hold, I want to be a better parent, doesn't preclude that my parents have fucked up or like that they did something wrong or I'm going to right a wrong. So I'm just curious about that. Like when you talked about that chip or that anger, was it you felt like they just abandoned you or left you, or what was the source of that?
There was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of abandonment stuff for sure. My dad moved back to the islands and I was welcome to go with him, but I had my friends in my life in Santa Cruz and I made the choices. Ultimately, when you get a little older, you go like, I could have gone. I made the choice to go and they let me go.
Right.
Maybe letting me go was, maybe not the right call. I don't know that I'd let my kids at 14, 15 years old tell me what's what.
Right.
But the reality is both my parents did the best with the tools that they had too. The tools that they had in their tool chest to be parents. And they did what they thought was best for me at the time. And I was seeking out a stable family environment. And that's why I ended up moving in with my best friend's family. It was very structured and regimented. And that's what most kids want, and it was everywhere else in my life was kind of chaos at the time. So
I love that you said that you always wanted to be a dad. That's pretty cool. I don't know that that hits a lot of people the same way, and that you wanted to be a better version of your parents. So what about your dad and or your parents that you like really admired and sought to emulate? And like, what were the parts where you were like, that doesn't work for me, I want to steer away from that or do that differently?
Both my parents have great work ethic. And so I definitely have learned that from them. And leading by example with your work ethic for your children is something I still model, for my children. I make sure that they know, like, nobody's going to give you anything. You're going to have to go out and work for it. I don't care how talented you are. There's still a lot of hard work that goes with it. I also think, from an improvement standpoint, I think it was a little more structured. It was a little more disciplined. My dad did 6 tours in Vietnam. He came back. He was drafted when he was 18 years old, barefoot, poor ass kid from the North Shore of Hawaii, and went over there and somehow survived 6 tours, came home, and he had some trauma from that. And so that led to some alcohol abuse and some stuff that wasn't great, growing up as a kid. There was a lot of turmoil in my early years as a child with my mom and my dad. But, you get past it. And I think that stuff makes you stronger as a person.
Yeah.
And my dad has, and he was one of those people, like one day he's just like, I'm not drinking anymore.
He just stopped.
Just stopped. He's like, I'm going to start running marathons instead. I'm like, Roger that.
Addiction's addiction. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right. What's interesting, like we could do a whole nother podcast of this. My dad is 78 years old, and I have a 17-year-old half brother and a 12-year-old sister on the North Shore of Oahu. And he's getting like a second go at being a dad, and he's so happy and he's so at peace. And I love the version of the man and the father. Some people will like, don't you feel like you got cheated? I don't look at it that way. Like, I'm so happy for my siblings. Just had my 12-year-old sister here visiting for Christmas from Hawaii. My 17-year-old brother is like, he's where I get my little boy fix, we have an interesting dynamic there too. It's like big brother / father figure at times too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, he obviously could easily be your kid in age wise. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. What time did you spend living in Hawaii versus California?
On and off my whole life, back and forth.
Yeah.
I have a home over there still and try to get back as often as I can, but it's a special place. My grandma there is 102. She still, she lives directly across the street from my dad. All my aunties and uncles and cousins are over there. And so I got some deep roots over there. My goal ultimately is someday to spend 6 months out of the year there.
Yeah.
And my kids love it over there too, which is,
all of our upbringing shape our ideas about fatherhood and family, and just Hawaii has such a different way in which family exists, very differently, more publicly, more community than here and, privately in California. So how much did that impact you growing up?
The idea of what Ohana means and the tribe and the tribalism of specifically the North Shore too, where I grew up, not just me, but a lot of young men that grew up over there or have family over there, like we become tight because we're all we got, right? Like in this world, I feel like I've been very blessed in life with friends and acquaintances who've gone on and done big things in life and become great fathers too. Along the way,
right.
I grew up with this group of guys in Santa Cruz and in Hawaii where we all kind of iron sharpened iron. We pushed each other. I was the first to be a dad, and they were like, "Oh, you're crazy," right? And I was like, "I got this. I'm just going to lean in. I'm going to be the best dad I can be." And we've all gone on and had different varying levels of success in life. But what we all hold each other to is this standard of kind of doing it better. And I don't think we've ever really openly talked about it in a group setting, but I think individually we've all kind of said like, yeah, we grew up a little different, man. We got to raise the bar,
Right.
I think one of the keys to being successful as a father and continuing to evolve is to surround yourself with the right people. Yeah. Find your tribe of people, find your tribe of men like you, Tony, that will push you. But in Hawaii, that's a special meaning. Kind of going back to that question, it's just community, that togetherness, that tightness. When you grow up in a tiny little town like that, they call it coconut wireless. Like something happens, everybody knows. And so there's a different level of accountability too, that is like, don't be a shithead because everybody's going to know you're a shithead. So I don't know. It's just different. You see examples of it being done right, and you see the examples of it being done wrong.
Right. So what about that particular spirit did you intentionally bring into your kids' upbringing? And maybe it was different with Grace than it was with the other two, but I'm just curious from that Ohana perspective, what did you bring in?
I think for me, it's just your family is first. Take care of your family first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And your family can be extended outside of just your immediate family too. It can be friends. It can be your extended family as well. The people that are there for you, you take care of them. The community can't stand just one person. Like it takes a village, right? The tribe to support each other. And, growing up in Hawaii, there was a lot of that. I'd go across the street to my 102-year-old grandmother's house, and she didn't just feed me. She'd feed the whole neighborhood. And I have friends that are not blood, but they're cousins, right? Because everybody's auntie, uncle, or cousin, right, in Hawaii, because we grew up together. And so you just took care of each other, and you took care of the community, and you also held each other accountable.
Right, right. I didn't realize that you at one point had full custody of Grace. Were you single at the time? Were you in Victoria together?
Victoria and I had been together for a little while, and it was one of those bittersweet moments because I think I always wanted to have full custody, and at the same time, like she needs a relationship with her mom.
Right.
But it just had gotten to a place where it was unhealthy. And I think it wasn't something I asked for. It was something I was like, I'd like you to have full custody? And I was like, absolutely. Roger that.
Right. Right.
I had just got up in the Tahoe to go on a snowboarding trip, I remember, and I jumped right back in the car and said, I'm going to go get my kid. I'll see you guys later. I was not going to wait for the stance to change. So it was like,
I know you're a big fan of Jocko Willink. Willink, is that his last name?
Jocko.
Right.
I'm rocking his shirt right now.
And, his book, Extreme Ownership, is really aligned with your personal philosophy. So, I mean, that's what I just heard too, is this, I will take responsibility. Like that is definitely a theme. And so I'm just curious, 3 daughters, how much Jocko did they get?
They get a little bit. One of the questions you'd ask me kind of in the lead up is like regrets or things like that. I think sometimes they get Jocko. Kaya was in jiu-jitsu 5 days a week for about 5 years. And then one day she goes, I don't want to do it anymore. And it broke my heart. I think I pushed too hard. I'm type A myself. I push really hard. I'm really hard grader on myself. And sometimes that doesn't manifest itself the best in terms of parenting style, especially with young girls, right? Like it's different. And I know there's people going to listen to this and be like, oh, girls can do anything. Boys can do it. Completely agree. Girl, dad, they can do anything. There are differences between how you motivate a young boy versus how you motivate a young girl. For the most part, maybe not always, but for the most part, there's been times where I would tap into things that would motivate me as a young man, that push, that drive, that fire. And it just was not, I had a towhead blonde, curly haired with pigtails and a pink gi out there doing jujitsu for 5 years. And I'm like, smash them, I pushed a little too hard. So she stepped away from the sport. And I think on my third go around at 47 years old, I finally have learned to just kind of go, I'm going to let Leilani find her way in this, and I'm here. You want to go kick the soccer ball? Daddy's down. Let's go.
Right.
You want to go wrestle outside on trampoline? Let's go. Whatever she's into, I'm just trying to water that seed and make sure I'm not pushing too hard.
Yeah. Multiple children gives you multiple opportunities to continue to learn and grow and do it differently. And I know if you push too hard previously, I know you're not going to pendulum and just like Mr. Allowance at all times. So what I'm hearing is it's like you're really seeking a balance for like what is the right amount of allowing her to guide her own path as well as provide guidance and support and structure and safety around it. Like, how do you find that balance?
One of the things Jocko talks about, right? It's like discipline equals freedom. And it is, I try to teach my kids, like, discipline does equal freedom. And so the more structured we have it, the more spare time you're going to have to go do the things you love, the more disciplined you are with getting your homework done and doing your chores. And what I've realized is because I'm a type A personality, my mind is pretty busy. There's always work to be done. My little hamster wheel's going to, mock whatever in my brain.
Yeah.
Always. It's one of the reasons why I love martial arts. It's one of the reasons why I like kickboxing and all those things, because it helps kind of center it and bring it down, bring that speed to something that's manageable, controllable. But as a parent, what I see in the world is that it's either overly rigid and too structured and too disciplined and kind of like that helicopter parent.
Right.
Push too hard. And I've done that too. Yeah. Versus no guardrails at all. Do whatever you want. Sit on your iPad for 5 hours, eat whatever the hell you want. Yeah. So for me, I'm just trying to find that center place where I can be in the flow state with my children. Like, because the flow state to me is they know the guardrails and what is expected of them. They know where they can come to me for guidance and support and how I can help motivate them and push them. And then I let them flow in here. And I try to just step back and enjoy being a parent there. Now, does that mean that I'm always in the flow state? No. No. Life has a way of screwing that shit up. But I just like Saturdays are chore days, kid. Like right before we got on the podcast, I was like, all right, girls, the routine, bust it out,
Yeah. And finding that balance is going to be different for every kid and also different for every moment. What I'm hearing you say is like the ability to also sort of read the room. Like, what does the kid need? How do I enroll the kid into being the one who can guide him or herself? As well as also being the one going like, I do have the experience. I mean, the role of parent is really a short period of their life. It's the period in which they're small, they don't know enough, they don't have enough experience, they're not strong enough, they can't take care of themselves yet. That's really the only time they need a parent. And once they get to be a certain age, 18 or whatever, they can make decisions for themselves or full functioning adults. It's not like our relationship with them goes away, but it changes because there's no longer a requirement of parenting. It's like that next level or the next phase of relationship. I know that you and Grace now have stepped into, right?
Totally.
You would love to be able to be more of a parent for your 23-year-old, and yet they're a freaking full ass adult. So how do you deal with that?
Well, sometimes you have to wear different hats, right? Especially for me, when you talk about 23, 13, and 8, they've all got different versions of the dad that they need to show up for them. Grace is a young adult. She's making adult decisions about life, and she just recently got engaged, and that's coming down the barrel.
Mazel tov. Yeah.
She's going to wait till after she finishes her master's. I think that was a very adult, mature, wise decision that she made.
Yeah.
To not layer a wedding on top of the stress of finishing her master's. And it's interesting, right? Because when they're young adults too, don't tell me what to do. I'm an adult. They don't like that parent-child kind of dynamic where you're talking down to them at all. But then there are definitely days where they need you to be dad still.
Yeah.
And so it's letting them lead the dance at that point is the best way I can describe it. And the one thing I've just gotten better at in kind of all aspects of life is I'm not a professional mind reader, especially when that hamster wheel is going really fast. So if I'm not sure which version they need me to show up, I just ask.
Yeah.
One takeaway, dads, if you're listening, if you don't know if they need you to be dad, coach, boss, ask. We all need to figure out how to show up.
Especially once they're in that preteen teenager thing. I think it's a great practice for sure. But you're also developing them and their communication skills to actually sort of expect that that's a normal way of communicating, so that it's a normal way of being in relationship, because we don't know what the right thing is anytime. And to be able to ask shows that you give a shit, right, about what they feel like they need. Now, maybe what they feel like they need isn't what they need. Then, next level, what do we do about it? But as you were saying it, like the feeling I was having in my body is like once they become past the age and you don't know what the right approach is, you kind of hold your breath a lot. And as soon as she says, I just need you to be my dad, then you're like, I can like exhale, because that's truly what you want to do at all times, even though modifying it is the right thing to do.
Yep, 100%. And I found that, getting permission to show up as the advice giver tends to land better once they're above a certain age.
Yeah.
Grace at 23, like I've got to go, hey, are you open to some advice about this? And if she's not, then okay, so you just need me to listen right now. All right, I'm just going to listen. And with Kaya at 13, it's a completely different ball game. Sometimes I'm the coolest dad on the planet, and other times I'm just like, Dad, 6'7" doesn't work for you when you do it. Like, don't do it. So
good advice, by the way.
Good advice, yeah. But she's stepping into her own confidence as a young woman, and you realize there's so much that they need from us as fathers to model the right loving behavior for them and the things that they should be taking out into the world when eventually somebody's going to be knocking at the door trying to take Kaya out on a date. And I want to make sure that I've modeled the right behavior for her and set the bar relatively high.
Yeah.
It's just part of life. It's that next chapter, right? We're heading into that as a 13-year-old where I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
Done this rodeo before. I think about how I want to show up for her. And I recently, somebody said this to me, a friend of mine, and I got to fact check this, but it sounds probably right. But it landed. And this was probably like 2 weeks before Christmas. He goes, once your kids are 12, 13 years old, you've spent 75% of the time that you're going to spend with them in your life. And I was like, holy shit. Like just let that sit with you as a father. Right? Like,
I think probably average. That's probably accurate. I mean, I don't know. That's the whole story. I think the greatest dad hack in the world is like help kids become adults that you want to hang out with and they want to hang out with you. Totally. And then if life just works out in a particular way when you live kind of near each other, you're no longer parent, child, but you're always dad, and that evolves. So I think, that's probably worst case. It seems like an accurate number. I want that to be nonsense. I want that to be 20%.
Me too.
Right?
I just had some friends, they went to Europe for a couple weeks actually, and all their adult children paid their own way to go with them to hang out with them. And I was like, that's a testament to who you guys are as parents, that your kids who are in their early 20s, mid to early 20s, who think you're that cool to go hang out with you in Europe.
Totally. Because a lot of people be like, hell yeah, I'll go on a trip that my parents pay for. But like, to pay for your own trip is really interesting. So, I would love to dig into like, what environment have those parents created that the kids are like, this is my favorite place to be. Like that's such a life goal. So, so much about being a dad is learning as we go. You've had a really interesting opportunity at kid 1. 10 years later, you had kid 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then like 5 years later, you had kid 3. And there's so much learning that happens. So what kind of a dad were you differently to Leilani than you were to Grace? And then what did you learn again then to Kaya?
Kaya then Lele. But Kaya,
right.
Kaya, it's all good. When I was a young dad with Grace, I was working so much, early 20s, trying to figure it out. Not a huge support system around me. I did what I had to do, right? Like in terms of just getting it done. I wasn't as present as I would have liked to be. And I was still just kind of in the beginning stages of my own personal growth journey and kind of opening up, willing to be vulnerable about what areas that I needed to grow. And so I look back at that, and in some ways, Grace got the least evolved version for sure. And the one that was just grinding, trying to figure out how to support his child and build a business at the time, because I was starting my own company. And I look back at it, I have some regret around, I could have been more present. I think kind of with all my children, because of that type A personality. That's something I struggle with is, hey man, that work will be there tomorrow. Put the phone down, go and be a dad, lock in to being a dad, because we're all so distracted today in the world we live in. There's so many things vying for our attention. And so for Gracie, I was a bit in survival mode, and that also brings out a pretty intense version of me. And obviously I was a young dad, and I met Victoria. We got married, we had Kaya, and Victoria brought a different, balance to the life. Somebody to go through life with, an amazing life partner, and my wife. And when we had Kaya, I shifted really hard to, I want to really make something of myself. And I would say I had been successful, but not to the level that I wanted to. And so I was still just extremely driven, and I didn't have the balance that I have now. And I think Leilani is definitely, she's got the most refined version of it.
Yeah.
Even things with Kaya, probably 6 or 7 years ago, I was like, everybody had Facebook and all the bullshit social media. I got rid of all that crap. Yeah. There probably is still accounts out there, but I just don't participate. It's just a time killer.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like, you put that stuff down and you start being more present with your kids and start being more, present with your family, and good things happen.
Yeah.
And you start to be able to see areas of opportunity where you can make improvements to yourself. At least for me, that's how it worked. So I look at it as, I was grinding early on, and God, my 23-year-old, sometimes she works so hard. She definitely picked up on it. She's a grinder. I go, got to have some fun too. You're 23. All the responsibilities are going to be there for you, but she is like just locked in, focused. And so I hope some of the life balance creeps in there for her in the near future. Sometimes I worry all she saw was me grinding. Mm-hmm. And that's what she knows, and that's what she's doing in life. But I'm optimistic that, she'll find that center here soon. And then with Kaya, I think, obviously I was still pushing real hard for some of the things, kind of like the jiu-jitsu and some of the other stuff, some of the other sports. I feel like I've pulled back, but again, the social media and stepping away from all that, I'll never go back ever. Ever. If I could give the world a gift, I'd get rid of all of it.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. Unfortunately, it's a virus that's infected our society. I can't imagine it will go away, but we definitely, like everything else, have to figure out how do we responsibly, live with that. And you've got kids, at the age that they're very impressionable about it. On that, like, what allowances or lack of allowances do you and Victoria have with the kids around social media?
Gracie can do whatever she wants. She's 23 years old, and I think she's got the social media accounts like Instagram or whatever. she's so busy and locked in, she doesn't have a ton of time for it. But I think, Kaya is in that age where a lot of her friends have it, and she's super into music. She wants to be a DJ. And so she's like, Dad, how am I going to get my name out there and my music out there if I'm not doing this? And so this is a debate we're having right now in the household. It's like, how do we navigate this? And right now we've got some pretty tight controls on it. It's all through mom's account, mom monitors, and all of those things, which I think are really important. There's so much, just kind of evil in the world. You don't want to have your kids without any controls on that. So if you're going to allow your kids to have some sort of social media, it needs to be monitored and have guardrails on it, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because, there's not enough controls on those tools if left untethered.
That's true. That's true. It's a good question that Kaya brings up, which is, how do I use it for promotion purposes? Because being a producer of content on social media is very different than being a consumer of it. And I think the deadly part is the consumer part. People who just consume, and then, start to choose to accept that whatever versions they're seeing on their phone in social media are like real, are true, and impact them. So I think it's a big difference between, if you're just consuming, then what's the frickin' point? Like, it's certainly, I would even argue, like, being a gamer is way more productive than being a social media consumer. You're doing something, you're solving problems. You're not just like, having this massive outside influence on how you see the world without you choosing it. And I think that's where, it can be very detrimental.
It's teaching them the difference between consuming and creating content.
Yeah.
And the difference in terms of, one is creative and it's tapping into something that they're passionate about, and they're going to share that. But then it's like, if you could step away from the comments and the negativity, because that's the other thing. It's not just consuming the crap, because I think that's a complete waste of time, right? Unless you're watching an educational podcast or something along those lines, like, it's just crap. 99.99% of the stuff out there is crap. Like, who needs to watch cat videos? Like, who gives a shit, But then it's like, once they create content too, once you start putting yourself out there, now you're in the feedback loop. Now you're in the matrix. The trolls will just take shots. It doesn't matter if they're 13-year-old little girls that made music. People are going to have an opinion, and it's not always going to be supportive. And so, what tools do your kids have to know to step away from that noise? And the reality is, I don't have all the answers for that, Tony. I don't think there's a parent out there that does. I think have the conversations with your kids beforehand.
Yeah.
Monitor it as a parent, and don't ever think that it's on autopilot, because that is, in my opinion, how bad things happen.
Yeah. I mean, when the kids were young and they started playing around with it, the one thing I was really adamant about was, just know that anything you put up online never goes anywhere. It's like herpes. It just sticks around forever.
Well, Tony,
you know what I mean? Like, be careful.
Thank God it wasn't when we were kids.
Oh, I mean, I can't even.
That's all I'm going. That is all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah.
Thank God.
That's right. That's right. So last thing you said, I think, is a really important one, which is, look, there's social media, then there's like 100 other things that they do on a daily basis. And I think a lot of our job as parents and dad is to like create the kind of person that would make the right choices. And I think that starts with establishing things like principles or values. And, what have you guys sought to establish with your kids in terms of like the lens through which they're seeing the world?
That's a big question. I'm not going to like oversimplify it, but it's like, be a good human being, treat others how you want to be treated, make sure that you're giving back to your community, whatever it is, at whatever age. An example of this is, we have a tradition. We were just down in Santa Cruz visiting my mom, and we're down at the beach on a walk. And we have this thing where every time we go to the beach, we all pick up minimum 5 pieces of trash. We always end up picking up way more, but it's like, and Leilani comes up to me and she grabs my hand and she says, Daddy, I wish everybody would do this. The beach would be so clean. And it's like, yeah, me too, honey. But that's one of those proud moments as a dad where she's got it already figured out at 8 years old. She's like, I can make a difference. And I said, just teach your friends about this, And so we just try to instill values in them. For us, it's have an adventure for life. Victoria and I both We love snowboarding and fly fishing and outdoors, and we want our kids to love the outdoors. And I think that gives them perspective. It gets them away from some of the other crap we just talked about, electronics and social media. So seek adventure. Surround yourself with good people. The quality of your friends matters. The quality of the people you hang out with matters. I don't pull punches on that with my kids at all. And it starts young. Like, I don't know about that one. Spends a little too much time with their hand in the paste jar and then in their mouth. Let's upgrade, Leilani. Let's upgrade. Some paste eating. And then just work hard. If you want something, if you're passionate about something, go get it. Go get it. Don't let anything stop you. Go get it.
Nice. I think it's just such an interesting thing with you, with girls, and as a dad, like who we are, who we're being, like how we approach things, how we handle things, how we treat them, how we treat their mother. It's constant, like planting seeds in their subconscious for what they want to seek out in life as their partner. And so it's such a big responsibility to think through, like, what are some of the little things that you've done that you feel like, I think I'm setting them up to really choose a good partner for themselves?
You hope they don't go the polar opposite, right? That's when you haven't done it right. But I think it goes back to, like, I get up every morning. I'm usually out the door before they're up. I'm up at 4, go to the gym at 4:30. I roll back home around 6:10. And I try to have breakfast with the girls every morning. And it's how I say good morning to their mom, how I say good morning to them, how I make sure I'm present. I tell them I love them. I don't leave the house without telling them I love them. And I just make sure that they feel loved and appreciated. And then I try to model hard work and model that hard work, there are ups and downs and, in life. And, when you get knocked down, you got to get back up. Like that's part of it. And so, because I think when you're a father, at some point, we've all gone through highs and lows, right, on our journey. And I think sometimes your kids, they need to not be sheltered from that. Too many times as parents, our goal is to like shelter our kids from hardship. Yeah, to a certain extent. But I also think like sharing the highs and the lows that you've had is maybe one way to shelter them from it, and talk about where you made mistakes and how you came back. That's something I do with my kids often. I had a pretty different childhood growing up on the North Shore and in Santa Cruz, kind of back and forth my whole life. And then, another big event that I had was when I was 28 years old. Closest thing I had to a big brother, Vince, passed away from a brain tumor. He was 29. He was married. He had 3 little boys. He was the opposite. He had 3 little boys. Vince, Mayo is his nickname, and Jules and Diego. And if they're watching, your dad's a stud. And he's up in heaven watching you guys. And they've all turned out to be great young men. But watching Vince at 29 years old, who just met the woman of his dreams, 3 little boys, he was crushing it in life professionally, and then it was gone. It was gone like that. Right. And that was for me, that like it made me just want to show up more intentional every day. And my kids know that story about Vince. They know his story. They know the impact it had on me in my life. And it's like, that was one of the hardest things I've ever been through in my life, was watching, the closest thing I had to a big brother wither away pretty rapidly, I share that stuff with them. I share them, the sadness, they've been to his grave with me. They've sat and watched me cry. They've watched me be vulnerable about it and miss my friend, and I think, sometimes we bottle all that shit up, and that is not the way to go. If you're raising little humans, man, like you gotta share the highs and you gotta share the lows with them.
That is a great thing to end on. Like I said, I knew we'd run out of time before we ran out of topics, and let's just think of it as like, ring the bell on round 1. Because I'd love to chat further, bruh. This is amazing. I loved our conversation. Love you very much. Appreciate everything you shared today.
Love you too, Tony, man. Thank you so much. Hopefully this makes a difference for some young dads out there coming up. So appreciate you. Aloha.
All right. Till next time. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Dad Manual Podcast. If you liked it, please leave us a rating or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really liked it, please share it with a dad you love. I'm looking to grow a community of fathers who are ready to change the world, and I need your help to do that. And if you got questions or topics you want me to explore, email them to me at thedadmanual@gmail.com. I would love to answer your questions on our next episode. Until next time, I'm Tony Cooper, and this is the Dad Manual Podcast.